Hey friend, really good to have you back. Excited to spend more time with you as we just dive into becoming the person that God made you to be. We're leaning into real transformation. We want real fruit in our lives. And the fruit that we're going to talk about today is the spiritual fruit of peace. So we want to define it. Peace is not just simply the absence of conflict. It's not, I just want some peace and quiet. I want calmness. I want a lack of drama in my relationships. I just want peace. It's not just the absence of conflict. We want to lean into the biblical concept of peace, which is shalom. Shalom is the filling of every good thing in every full way. Shalom is such a rich passage. It's such a rich concept that says, hey, listen, there's something for you where you're just full. It's not just the absence of bad things, it's the filling of all the good things, good relationships, good mindset, that you know where you're going, that life is full. That's the kind of peace we want to talk about. And that's where we want to get to. But in order to get there, I want to kind of walk you through a little bit of a journey where God had to take me from a moment where I really felt really empty, where I did feel like it was chaos, and how he led me to really being full. And we're going to unpack a little bit of Colossians and what Paul would give us some wisdom in. And so a couple years ago, it's really true. I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I had this growing emptiness. I don't know how to explain it. A growing sadness, if I'm being really honest. And most people that know me know that's just not like me. I'm a pretty optimistic person, maybe the most optimistic person that I know. But I just had this growing sense of just emptiness and sadness. And so I took some friends' advice and they just said, hey, listen, if in 4 weeks your emotions haven't changed, you're not just getting past it, which is most of us think a little time will get past. He's like, if 4 weeks pass and you still feel where you are or worse, Matt, would you go see a counselor? And I'm like, I don't want to if I'm being honest, but I'll do it. So I set up an appointment 4 weeks later when it hadn't changed. As a matter of fact, had gotten worse. And I sat down and I just sat there in front of a counselor and just started telling him about the lack of peace I felt, just this growing emptiness and this growing sadness. And I couldn't really explain why. I just felt it. I just felt like this running, anxious, racing spirit that could never really find peace. And in the middle of that, he said, well, you know, let's start walking through. And he said, let's see what God has to say about it. And so he opened up his Bible and he dove into Matthew chapter 6 and he started reading in verse 25 and just said, why do you worry? And he kept reading, but I really got stuck on that word worry because I was like, worry? I don't think this guy's hearing me. Like, I don't worry. Like, Matt's not a worrier. That nobody would say, oh man, that Matt guy, he's a real worrywart. But all of a sudden he's sitting in front of me, he's saying, okay, Matt, the enemy of peace is your worry right now. And I was like, God, I just don't see it. Just like this, he gives me a picture, right? And he gives me this picture. I'm on this great big sailboat, right? And I'm on the deck and the beautiful sky and clouds and the ocean is gorgeous and the wind is in my hair and the sails are full. And man, we are on an adventure. This is what we were made for. And right in the middle of that, I got a glimpse of some rocks out ahead of the ship. And the rocks were like the boat was headed for them. It seemed unavoidable. I kind of looked up to the captain and I said, hey, you know, there's some rocks coming up. It feels like we're headed in a bad direction. It feels like we really need to make a turn here. What are we going to do? And the captain just said, no, I think we're fine. I think we're good. We're just going to keep trucking. And I remember thinking, man, what are you talking about, man? We can't keep going where we're going. We can't keep doing what we're doing. And so I start going over to this side of the boat and I start going over this side of the boat and I'm running around, I'm anxious and I'm trying to talk to people about what do you think and what do you think? And all of a sudden in the middle of that chaos, me running around the boat, God just leaned into me and said, can you see it? Like, Matt, everybody's is a little bit different, but that's what it looks like to lose your peace. It's what it looks like to lose that fullness that you have. And here you are in this beautiful place where when you said yes to me, when you said, let's go, I told you I was going to be at the helm, but all of a sudden you used to be having joy. No matter what comes, you think I've got it. But all of a sudden, Matt, here's what you've done. You're looking out ahead of your life. You're seeing these things that you can't control. And you're trying to take the helm. You're thinking your circumstances are taking the helm. But Matt, you need to remember who you invited to steer and direct your life. You have forgotten who your captain is. And when we dive into this book called Galatians, right, the reason Paul's even writing this book is because his friend Epaphras had told him, Paul, listen, man, there's a lot of good stuff going on, but I got to tell you what I'm seeing, what I'm perceiving is we got a bunch of people running around the deck trying to grab anything and anyone to give them more confidence and control over where their life is headed. They're worshiping angels. They're diving deep into tradition, Paul. They're adding rules to their life that are not godly, and they're trying to get God's attention. They're going back to their old ways, Paul. More activity, less and less peace, more anxiety, more desire for control, less and less real confidence in where their lives were headed and what they could expect. So Paul, seeing this, paints one of the clearest pictures of who our captain is. He wants to remind them who's at the helm and where our peace really comes from. So Colossians 1 and verse 15, and this is crystal clear. He says, hey, listen, let's talk about Jesus. The Son is the image of the invisible God. He's the firstborn over all creation. For in him, all things were created, things in heaven, things on earth, visible, invisible. Whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him, all things hold together. And he's the head of the body, the church. He's the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. Once you were alienated from God, you were enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior, but now he has reconciled you by Christ's physical body through the death to present you holy in his sight, without blemish and free from accusation. So listen, if you continue in your faith, establish and firm, and do not move from the hope held out in the gospel, this is the gospel that you heard and that has been proclaimed to every creature under heaven, and of which I, Paul, have become a servant. And Paul just says, hey, listen, you ever feel like your life is headed for the rocks? You ever feel like your marriage or your relationships, you ever feel like your out of control addictions or your job or your mental illness is at the helm of your life, driving you to places that it scares you, it brings anxiety, and it makes you feel emptiness? Paul says, you want the fruit of peace? Like, do you want the feeling of every good thing in every good and full way? Then you need to take a fresh look. You need to soak in the reality of your all supreme, powerful, seated on the throne with all authority captain. Like, you need to remember Jesus, man. Like, you need to remember that he's in charge, that he has everything that you need, and that he loves you. He's at the helm. Like, soak that in. Let the wind hit your face. Enjoy being on the open seas and be filled with every full and good thing in every good and full way. Paul says, hey, listen, I know that your life feels like maybe you're headed for the rocks, and maybe there's just no way for you to really find peace. But today, if you would soak into your roots just who Jesus is and the power that he has, and the fact that when you put your faith in Christ, you made him captain, then no matter what comes, whether you think it's rocks, whether you think, like, no matter what's coming, he's got you. And in that, you can find peace.